All right, Beth.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Beth Oravec. I am the showroom manager for the Julian Chichester showroom. We opened last March in ADAC on the first floor. So if you have not yet been by, please make an appointment and come by to see us. Julian Chichester is very happy to be part of today's event, sponsoring it with our friends at Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles. And I think we can all contest that nature is an inspiration and a wonder to all of us. And so, with that being said, please welcome Zoe Gowan and the lovely Suzanne Kasler.
Thank you so much, Beth, and thank you, Julian Chichester, and welcome everyone who is joining us for Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles and ADAC's Reader Day. I'm Zoe Gowan, the executive editor with Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles, and I am lucky enough to be sitting on this panel hosting with Suzanne Kasler, the designer who needs no introduction, but we will give her one anyway. So Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles has been lucky enough to feature countless of her projects and other collaborations with her. She also has a furniture collection with Hickory Chair, lighting with visual comfort, and a very, very popular, I'm a huge fan myself of her Ballard designs, particularly the Directoire collection, which is all outdoor furniture. So we are so lucky to have Suzanne here to walk us through all of the magic and wonder of how she creates these outdoor spaces, which are more important than ever as we are all finding ourselves living every minute of every day and every vacation day also in our houses. So without much further ado, I'm going to segue into our first project with Suzanne, which is her own home, which we have titled, or she has actually titled, Buckhead Regency. And so, Suzanne, just where do you start from the very beginning to create a home that flows inside and outside as seamlessly as yours?
Well, one of the things that has happened in design today, and it's something that I have always been doing for all the time I've been in design, is putting together the team in the very beginning of a project. Whether this was a renovation, the house that I have is a renovation, but even the projects that are new build, we always bring in the architect, the landscape architect, and the interior designer. And this happens early on because what's happening today is just how the house is flowing. And so I'm showing you the kind of the exterior of the house. And then we're going to go to the back of the house. I just wanted to give a reference to kind of what was happening with the architecture. This is the back. The back of the house is the, we designed, Bill Baker and Land Plus worked with me on our house in Atlanta. And one of the key things I wanted to do was create an interior room in the house. So, you know, what's happening with your outside spaces, it's almost like you come into a room. So you can see this connection of, we did one whole section in the pea gravel, which is very European. Our house being the Regency feel, we wanted to have it be kind of also have a feel of the garden and inside and out. And we put these big iron windows, and you can see them open in this picture. So when you're in the house, you kind of feel very connected. And even when you're outside in the garden or in this part of the house, you really feel like you're in a room. And the next picture kind of shows the whole lawn. This kind of comes out, and we were able in our house to create this kind of flat lawn, and with the pool in the middle, and we just kept the grass next to the pool, which is kind of, again, that European feel. So it doesn't look so over designed. And then really our lot was very narrow. So we needed as much lawn as possible with the green. And what happened is the pool is hugging the garage that we built new. One of the things that was so interesting, 2 stories back on the other picture, the little pool house, if you go back, the little pool house building, that houses the pool house. And I kept arguing and saying I wanted to have a little stone building in the back. If you could ever bring in buildings or little structures on your property, it gives you a visual and draws your eye back. And it also makes the property almost seem larger. And we had a leftover round window that ended up not working in the main house. So I added another one, and the architect drew up this little stone building that really houses the pool equipment. And another fun story was I bought these chairs at the Paris flea market, and they were very funky and odd and very curvy. And everyone that I was with when we were shopping did not like them. I came home and upholstered them in white, and they've been kind of a really great feature. If you could ever find pieces to bring into your own garden, it really brings that personality. And then the next picture, you'll see how beautiful we did the garage building. And again, William Baker did this building. And what we did here, and we're seeing this a lot, the French doors open to the garage. See how close it is to the pool, but it really acts as an entertainment building. So we can open the doors, and then you can literally have the building like housing your food or your tables. And we're seeing that so much today with the how you're using your outside. And a garage building, this is a 3-story garage. I just think it's so beautiful how it related to everything, and that it ends up having multi-purposes in the space.
Absolutely. And Suzanne, do you actually park your cars in here?
We do. We actually can park our cars in here, but you can see this is the other side of the garage. You can see all the way through the garage if the doors are open. So what happens with a garage space today is it really ends up being another room that you can use, for a garage when you're not using it for hanging out.
Absolutely.
And then this is just showing a couple of what I just put these pictures in, showing how setting up tables and chairs, and can be very casual. What people are loving today is entertaining outside. Atlanta is unique that it has such great weather, really 8 months of the year. Probably the toughest time for Atlanta is the middle of summer, which is right now. And so this is showing how just casually, these chairs are just little French chairs and tablecloths and long tables, and how fun it is to entertain.
Suzanne, I saw that in your home, when it's set for a party, you added the curtains. Is that a party touch, or is that just you style it 2 different ways?
I've styled it different ways. As a designer, and we all know how designers are, we love to have different looks, and the curtains give it a whole different kind of feel that you can see in this picture. Most of the times I take the curtains down because you do have to kind of think of maintenance a little bit on the outdoor space, but we have these great actual curtains that we make for Ballard that are the outdoor fabrics. And really it gives you just such a whole different feel when you kind of do the curtains. I mean, it kind of enhances that whole concept of your outside space really is part of the interior rooms that you're creating with the house.
Absolutely. How many people were at this party? Your backyard looks like it could host large crowds.
I really will say we've had at least over 150 people at different times. And what ended up happening, we have had so many different events at the house, a lot of events for different museums and for ADAC and the showrooms, things with Noah. And we've really been able to host a lot of people at the house that have come into Atlanta because everyone loves Southern hospitality. And I think the more a house gets used, the more energy and positive energy it has. And I always encourage people to not worry if everything's perfect, just to embrace it and enjoy it.
Well, yours looks like it's set from the foundation to always be perfect. And then we will move on to another one of your amazing projects that feels completely different than your own home, which is in Port Clyde, Maine, and it does not.
Yeah, this is a beautiful part of the country, and everyone's loving going to Maine. And we were so lucky to work with these really cute young family. They brought 40 acres on the ocean, And they hired Les Coles, the architect, to do the design. And one of the most interesting things, the property had an older house on the property, which they went ahead and kind of fixed up and painted and lived in. And the first building that they wanted to do was the pool house. And I thought that was so interesting, instead of doing the main house. And they literally focused really the most kind of significant design on this pool house. And what happened was they realized that they could stay in the house that was existing on the property, but this would be the place where everyone would be hanging out. The pool house has one bedroom in it, but it does have a kitchen. And you can see how it relates to the pool. It has, the outdoor cooking. But I thought that concept, I've always talked about that with our clients, having, especially when you have an estate property, having different buildings you can have things happen in really gives a destination in a property. And again, it's kind of a great way when you're planning and thinking about how the property is going to unfold in terms of how it's going to be used. On this property, they also did a barn and a chicken coop, and a vegetable garden. And so that's a whole nother destination. And then you can see kind of the outdoor porch that really connects, the house with everything. This is now a few years later, we were in the main house, and they finally did build a main house. And this is the porch on that main house. But they kept it very cozy and very kind of, in keeping with, I do think it's always we call it a sense of place, and the architecture and the interiors, and even how you're treating the decorating for these spaces relate so much to where you are. And as you can see, we always think of blue and white in Maine. And one of the things that kind of, the whole house is blue and white. And one of the things that kind of started this whole concept for them was the husband's mother had collected, blue and white porcelain, and he had inherited a lot of it. And it really kind of started our whole color concept, which is such a popular concept anyway, all blue and white.
When you designed this space, did you take into account the climate of Maine versus the climate of Atlanta? It seems like you can escape from the winter but still be outside, or escape from the sun.
Yes, but this house, is used mostly in the summer for them. It really is a summertime property mainly for them, even though they're coming maybe a few times in the year, other times. So, but in designing it, I always try to design a classic look that will kind of be timeless, whatever time of the year it is. But in Maine, you see the dark wicker, darker finishes. We're not doing a beach house here, but they did want the drapery. It's always interesting how this outdoor drapery immediately it creates a room feeling, even on a porch that is just screened. So you do that a lot on houses.
And then, we also have the kitchen.
Well, just this whole thing of, you're walking outside, you can kind of see an outside whole connected place that's cooking and eating right out the kitchen door. And it's kind of a galley kitchen. And even though this space was designed new, I loved how it was so functional and worked so beautifully for the family. And then it kind of goes, like it's literally a U-shaped hallway. You work in the kitchen and you go outside, you go back to the other way, to the other part of the room.
So smart. So it really does flow.
Yes. And that's kind of what's happening, why the design team is so critical in the beginning. Because, you're kind of then working with the, what's happening on the inside. Is it the front entrance? It is the outside eating? Is it the grill porch? And you can design all those spaces when you're on paper and when you're laying it out that really function. And they really create, because what we call design today is, it's all about creating lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. This family has a very dreamy lifestyle.
Yes, it is a beautiful property.
And then
but with 4 kids, it is used too. and she is a fabulous cook.
Well, good. And hopefully a fabulous gardener as well.
Yes, and they did a whole outdoor fireplace area that's kind of off the side of the pool, and kept the gardens really natural and kind of almost in keeping with the whole property. That's manicured a little, but then very kind of easy living and just kind of natural and beautiful. And you can go and cut flowers from your garden every day, and it just kind of makes it really does create all these destinations for when you're living at your property, of places to go and kind of experience different visuals.
Mm-hmm.
And the last picture is a beautiful picture of the ocean, which is so pretty. The pool, looks, it's just so beautiful. That's looking from the pool house out to the water.
Wow. Well, that would be a great place to shelter in place.
Yes. We've all been sheltering in place a lot. And what's happened for us, and it was interesting, we've had at least 3 clients calling us, and they actually are wanting to do their outdoor spaces. A lot of people, when they're working on their outdoor space, because they're kind of, they've gotten their whole house done and they know that they're going to do it, and they might do it temporarily. But it has been so funny. We even got another call yesterday from our Chicago client, and they're really ready now to get the final things done for their outdoor space, because everyone has been realizing that when you're at home, how much more we're using it. Even at our house, we have used the grill and outdoor tables more. And what was funny to me, I had bought all these kind of printed tablecloths in Europe, and I don't think I had really ever used them. And I dug them out of the attic, and we've used them maybe like 5 times since we've all been sheltering in place. So I think it's really been a fascinating focus on home and outdoor living today, and how it's really creating a whole new focus for people.
Yeah, I think our own backyards are really becoming our destinations.
Yes.
Suzanne, we just had a quick question pop up, which will be interesting. This attendee would like to know your opinion on an outdoor fireplace versus a fire pit.
Well, one thing is we usually do both a fireplace and a fire pit. And what we find is the fireplace ends up being that cozy kind of place that's maybe a little bit closer to the house, that has more regular furniture. And whenever we are doing a fire pit, we always talk to people about putting it kind of out on its own with the Adirondack chairs around it. Because people love to have a destination, especially families, where they may go out somewhere more private, away from the house, and really have these amazing, like think at night talking and having, just sitting around a fire pit. It kind of creates like a campfire feel. So we have done fire pits on almost every one of our houses, but that's how we differentiate. So we really do both the fireplace and a fire pit. And the fire pits today are so easy to incorporate in and add onto your property.
Well, that is great. So moving along to another project where you could tell that there was such collaboration from the very beginning of designer, architect, and landscaped architect, I think is so evident throughout Buckhead Arts and Crafts.
Yes, this house again, it's interesting. This is the William Baker house, and it was also Land Plus was involved. But this house, which you really can't tell exactly, it's up on a really high hill. So what was interesting, I'm showing the house from the exterior so you can have a reference, because I do think it was one of the most amazing transformations in the back, because it was such a challenging site. So what the architect they put the house at the top of the hill so that the entire back of the yard could be completely flat. And that's always such a great way of connecting the house, from an outside space to the inside. And what you're seeing here, if you go back a picture, the pool house, you're looking now from the main house to the pool house. And they did the pool house with the great big, almost like the doors that completely open, but they open both ways. So you look right through, and literally the fireplace is built into the wall that is the retaining wall of the property. So now if you go to the next picture, you're in this pool house room, but now there's a whole nother space behind it that they built the fireplace. And it was such a challenging site. I did love how this turned out, to do that pool house building kind of in the middle between the pool and the fireplace. So what we were able to create is, we have a pool, which is its own space of hanging out. You then can go into the pool house. It does have its own kitchen. And then you are kind of have hangout space. And now you can go all the way out to the actual fireplace and hang out there. So you have this whole sequence, not only visually, but you also have all these great experiences to live through. And in these family houses, people love to have different destinations.
I think this one is just so smart with the firewood knit.
Yes.
It's such a
kind
good,
of unusual. And it's taking a challenge of a lot and really making it be kind of amazing, you know?
yes, I think it's so smart.
And in addition to that, you can see now the edge of the pool house on the left, but they still wanted a screen porch or a little porch right off their family room. So you end up having this connected space, because the screen porch, or a porch like my loggia in my house or our house, those ends up being the rooms that you can kind of extend your living space. And this little very fun porch is right off the family room. And again, very connected to the pool itself too. So there's lots of places for this family to kind of really enjoy their property. And I will say, the way it was sited, and this is looking back, now you're looking back at the main house. So you kind of have seen a whole circular vision. And you can kind of see the challenge. There's not lots of space around the pool. So extending those spaces wherever they can really makes all the difference in how the house lives.
And then is this the side entrance, or?
Yeah, there's, you know, what we call the friend's entrance. And one of the things that I always talk about when we're working with the team, where is the friend's entrance? Because really, as much as people want people to use their front door, which we do love, going to the friend's entrance is the reality of living today. And, you know, we want it to be as special of an entry as, even though it's a secondary entry. So it's kind of a key part of our design process in working with the architects and landscape architects. And this is a great example of how fun this whole little area is. And also, it's kind of walled in because they have a dog. They can let the dog right out. You know, there's kind of lots of things that start happening when you're creating a family house that we're always thinking about.
And the friend's entrance seems very friendly. And then on a different note, we'll move to Columbia, South Carolina, which feels so familiar with the Charleston style side porch, but also I think more grand.
Yes, this house, the client was from New Orleans, and she was actually had grown up in Columbia. And when they had the Hurricane Katrina, she went back to her hometown, met her husband, and they married, and they built this house. So there were all these references to the Southern architecture anyway. And Ruard Feldman was the architect on the house. And so I'm kind of showing you the outside of the house, because one of the things that happened, her husband had bought this lot, and it's kind of narrow. It's down in the like a neighborhood, but after they started on the house, they ended up buying the lot next to them on the right, which they actually ended up making their garden. And I'm showing this picture of the inside, if you go back to the living room, because everything opens out to this porch. And it's kind of, like you said, one of those southern porches that's really along the entire side of the house, but really the house really lives to the side. And then they captured this entire beautiful garden and lawn. And you can see this is that outside space, and we'll kind of go back. One of the favorite pictures is the porch we did, because they go out here every morning, and we put this really comfortable Genesee furniture out here. those beautiful big doors open up. They come and just hang out here. And then you can see the picture of what you're looking at, this beautiful garden that really captured the entire, would have been probably another lot. And I think that's so interesting and creative of how, you know, you start with one project and then they realized they really wanted more entertaining space. And it was really designed so they could really entertain and tent the space. At the end of this is another, it's really a little kind of potting house, but it has a big table. You can have dinner out there, but it's not really like, it's kind of like this really little outbuilding that just houses some of the shedding equipment. And I just think it just is such a beautiful feature. And you can see how these buildings relate back to the architecture of the main house and how they really almost create such interest in the property that's what we're seeing. And we're all designing this in the beginning because the whole way the house was going to live was really on the side. So even though the house, you know, the living room is one of the main entrances out, and she brought in a woman landscape architect for this project, and it was really, really beautiful.
Yes, and I feel like with the additional structure, it also gives it much more of a feeling of being an estate.
Yes,
yes.
Yeah, it really does, and it's just, yet it's kind of a really city house. You know, it's in a neighborhood that's kind of in a very. So I think that's what's so interesting about the design of this house. And the porch, if you go back to that picture, I will say that we used, I think one of the other features that's so great, we did that shutter in the back. And what it does, it kind of stops the room and brings you back into the house. Yet at the same time, you can see through and you get airflow. But I think those shutters add such a great feature that I have actually used that design detail and shared this photo. In fact, I shared it today with some clients from Palm Beach because so many people have a loggia, but we want to then create a room and kind of get back into the house. Mm-hmm. And this is a great way to do that kind of detail. And then the other thing that we did here, you can see all the limestone in the columns and the flooring, but the client really wanted the look of an authentic older house. So we really worked hard to source antique black marble and white marble, and we did the rug out of the marble on the loggia. And you can see the perimeter is still the limestone that relates to the exterior of the house, but it does create like a rug in the room. And I loved how, because it's kind of the antique stones, it gave a patina when you're building new houses that does add a lot of dimension and interest to the house.
Yes, and I think also for some reason this lantern just takes me directly to an old New Orleans house.
Yes, the all those details really make all the difference, you know. And I think that today, you know, we're seeing amazing things that we can buy for, you know, the lanterns, the lighting, the furniture being comfortable. And also, you have to remember it's still outdoors and you have to have it be maintenance free. And people are loving these outdoor spaces.
Suzanne, we got another question that I think pertains specifically to this setup right here. How would you transition from a home with mahogany floors to the exterior without using dark stone?
Well, actually, the floors in this house are dark. If you go back to the living room picture, they're kind of well, I don't know if you can see the dark wood. I mean, it doesn't show up in this picture as much, but it is a dark wood floor. So really, we don't ever mind that wood transition to a limestone. And what's interesting here is we're transitioning from the dark wood to a limestone to our antique black and white stone. So a lot of times, once you get the details kind of in place, we mix a lot of the materials. I do think it has a more collected look and it kind of works really well. So if you have classic mahogany floors, they easily can tie into a stone loggia.
All right. And then
I guess that's fun that these little chairs I found at the Scott's Antique Market, and they're kind of those signature chairs by a well-known designer. I was Francois Correa, and it was interesting because we painted them white. They're actually white, and I love, they almost look like flowers in the garden, but they're really special, and I really am always looking, just like those kind of interesting chairs I had found at my house at the flea market. I love finding these unusual pieces. It was interesting when I showed them to the client, she didn't know she wanted them, but I brought them for the installation. And when I showed how they looked in the composition of the garden, she loved them. And I just think that whimsy and that personality, bringing interest in to these houses and not having it looked everything matching, is kind of really a great thing we can be doing with our outside spaces.
And no one should ever doubt you on garden chairs. It seems like if they say they're not going to like them, then you know they really are.
Yes. Well, sometimes you have to bring those things on an installation. And a lot of times, even for the exterior, we will bring, objects or accessories because it's hard to visualize. But once you start putting some furniture in your garden, and just like the buildings, it does give a whole scale reference, and it kind of visually creates a lot of interest within the all the landscaping that's happening.
Mm-hmm. It also makes it seem like more usable in a way. Like you could go.
Yes.
And then moving on to a completely different side of your design aesthetic is this project in Nashville, which when I saw it, it just made me realize I'm back and forth with Nashville kind of a lot. When you're in Nashville, you sense that all these people from California are coming in. That California lifestyle really came out.
Well, it's the whole music industry, and the clients in Nashville, we put the team together. Bill Ingram was the architect, and Gavin Duke, the landscape architects. And this house was a renovation, and it was not an attractive house, I have to say. And it was a major renovation. And one of the things that, as you said, the great thing about the house was the property. And again, I think so many people today are buying, the house because of where they're located. But this client wanted that LA kind of way of living. I mean, when I think of the California way of living, it's always been an inspiration to me, because truly living in LA or California or Santa Barbara or any part of California, really, that connection to the inside out has always been part of their design aesthetic. And it has just been such a big feature of everything we've always tried to bring into our projects. And this was like maybe one of the ultimate ways of doing it. So here we are in the master bedroom, and we were able to, with all the new iron windows that they added onto the house, they created this beautiful garden with seating right outside their master that really is just really beautiful.
Yes.
But here you're looking back at the house, and it really was a challenge because the house was this unusual existing structure in a L shape. And I have to say, when we got done, the design team was very amazed at all we could do with it. And it actually is one of our favorite projects.
Oh, really?
But
So
one of the things that is so fun that with this house, having it live with this L shape, everything, there's all the iron windows that wrap in the big, L, and everything looks out at this beautiful garden and yard. We really didn't take a picture the other way. You can see that kind of is off the living room. But if you kind of go back to the main area, where we're standing here, if you're looking back at the house, there's another pool house building. We actually didn't photograph it because it was still under construction, because it was kind of like this renovation that always kept going. But they put in a new swimming pool, and they centered it right on the house. So we started getting some anchoring with the house. And I just think that this really is kind of, it's just so fabulous the way this house lives. And this family has a really big family. They're always, every time I would think they have friends and family over, there's at least 20 people. And what was so great is every one of these French doors, when you're inside the house, the kitchen, you all kind of can live in and out, and you can kind of go back and forth. And I think that that's kind of a key thing that's happening today. Another thing that happened, that go back to the next picture, there was, you can see the house on the left, and then there's an existing, they renovated and added on to a guest house on the right. And they were thinking, how do we connect these? And I do think this was so amazingly successful. Bill ended up almost creating, it looks like you're going over a bridge, because when you look down over this kind of ledge, you're looking down at a lower driveway actually. And yet if you look out at this view, you can literally see the downtown city of Nashville at night. So we created this kind of really casual, they had a big table that was handmade, and we just used it outside. It's covered, even though the room itself is open. We ordered our favorite authentic director chairs, actually from Africa. When we did the project in Kenya, there's someone that makes these chairs that really withstand, you can kind of go back years later, they're outside and they just stand up under any kind of stress. And the nice thing about them, they're folding chairs. So we were able to, we ordered like, 20 of them so they could sit at the table, they could use them everywhere in the project. But it looks so good. It's kind of like creates that whole look that I think is fitting with this kind of casual house that has kind of this whole California feel. And then, when you come back on the other picture, creating these big spaces, big sectionals and comfortable lounging, but at the same, and there's a couple of these areas right offside the living room. And then you can see how their property just keeps going and going in the back. And it's really, so part of what's happening in architecture and design today, it isn't just about our thinking on the interiors. A huge part of our focus is thinking about how the exterior is really going to enhance the living that's happening inside, and how we can create experiences for the houses. And with our design team, I mean, regardless of where you live, we've seen properties in all parts of the country that we've been doing, but the exterior rooms are really part of the success of how the project is really living.
So, Suzanne, what was the architecture of this project before you, Bill, and Ben, was it Ben Page is the landscape architect?
It was David Duke.
David.
Well, I mean, it's David, the two of them. I mean, Gavin, Paige Duke was their team, but it was Gavin who I worked with on the project more directly. The house was really very, very upsetting, and it was like this massive kind of, I don't even know how we describe the architecture. We actually did on one of our Instagrams a before and after, and we all were even surprised. And I will say, when they first talked to Bill about renovating it, it was so interesting that you could even renovate a house and have it be so successful. But really what happened is the way the L shape on the property and the space, it sometimes when you do renovations, I think you end up with some of the most interesting projects, because you almost are challenged to create things out of things that might not be as perfect. And that's kind of what happened with this house. You can't really see the interiors. You can, actually this house was published in an Architectural Digest, Architectural Digest online. The house, it was on AD online, you can look at it. And you can see the room is very 2 stories in the living room, and then how it comes out to the porch on the pool. And it's so interesting how it really was successful because of the quirkiness of it. And really the client has loved it because of the way it flows. and you're able to have so much space living for them on the main floor because of this a big L-shaped square footage.
It is
So I think it's really fun. It really is one of, it's just a favorite project, really. Yeah, so there are pictures online that you can see more of the house, and it's really so interesting. But I think on my Instagram, I did a before and after somewhere. I'll have to repost it, and it's very fun. We were all very excited about the end result of this house, but I do think design today, it's interesting how it incorporates really everything and all the and it's been an exciting time to see that happening.
Yes, I think we're all seeing now right now that we need more out of our house than we ever have.
I know it's amazing how that has changed when we're all spending so much time at home. And really, we had so many of our clients calling us, which I know I talked to other designers, and they all said the same thing, how they really were appreciating so much of their house. And it was interesting using spaces and rooms that they might not have used as much before. And I think that's a huge positive for certainly the world that we're in, because what we've always been in it for is we make people feel better when they live in a great space.
So just as a quick, since you sort of started this and people are asking, aside from clients requesting help with their outdoor spaces, what other requests are you seeing more of in this socially distant shelter in place time that you weren't seeing before?
Well, I think the challenge is really the maintenance of the houses, the upkeep in terms of the rugs and the upholstery. People really want family-friendly houses, and I think that's always a challenge. We want things to look great and beautiful, and at the same time, we really have to be thinking about how they're going to really live there, because that's what houses are being. People are really using their houses. So I do think that that's kind of a bigger focus than ever, and we do a lot of family houses, and like this family, it's interesting, you can have the 4 children and then they come back with multiple their partners, and then the relatives come and they all have kids. So houses start kind of having more people at the house than when the kids are little. And that's what we're kind of also seeing a lot. And everybody just wants to have an ease with it. I think people don't want things over decorated. They want to have it feel more personal and kind of have this easy way of living that they can just really enjoy things. That's kind of what we are seeing.
I think those are all good things to be seeing. So I'm going to open it up to Q&As. So we already have some in the hopper, but type them into the Q&A function also. So we have one about colder climates, Suzanne. So what are your priority concerns when you design a project located in a colder climate?
Well, we're doing a house right now in Beaver Creek, and it's certainly beautiful in the summer, but it is the colder climate. And we are putting the heated floors and the outdoor fireplaces. And people are, they're trying to figure out ways to add the heat lamps at the ceiling that look better than they used to. And a lot of times the architects are working on incorporating those kind of details into their design. But even in kind of just medium climates, we're putting in the heated floors because people love using their outdoor spaces really year round. And then we're doing, so many of the retractable screens that, screen porches are never as attractive as the ones that are open. But the reality is, you a lot of times need to have them screened, or kind of even those extra windows that can come down. There's amazing resources they've been designing for outdoor rooms today. They give a lot of flexibility on how to really extend your interior space to the outside. So that's kind of a lot of what we're seeing, you know, and then lots of big warm throws in baskets and the fireplace, and you can use the room year round.
What are some of your top recommendations for performance or indoor outdoor fabrics?
Well, you know, we really, I actually do some outdoor fabrics from my outdoor collection for Ballard, and we do all the sunbrella there, but we certainly use perennials and Genesee fabrics, and we're really, I will tell you that there's been such a demand for outdoor fabrics that all of the big manufacturers and all the fabric houses we use are coming up with, you know, I do a fabric collection for Lee Joffa. They're all coming up with these great outdoor fabrics. And we are using them, you know, and we're using some of them inside. A lot of people are loving bringing those fabrics into the interior as well because of the maintenance and the ease of maintenance for them. So I would say that we are really using so many of the lines. We kind of just stay open, and we're so excited that so many people are responding with their design and color ideas for outdoor fabrics. It's a big part of the design world today.
Mm-hmm.
As is the outside furniture. You know, I have 2 collections with Ballard. I have a wicker, dark wicker collection and a directoire collection that's metal, both in white and bronze. And it's interesting, you know, that part of the business for people is really, really growing. And so many of the companies really in every dimension are thinking now, just like the interiors we're doing, incorporating outdoor furniture as part of their collections, because it's a seamless, you know, way of living today. And so you're not looking, and we really want outdoor furniture that kind of relates to what we're doing on the inside. So there is a huge kind of, I see, growth in that part of our business.
Suzanne, are you seeing a lot of outdoor fabrics being used indoor for the maintenance?
We have had a lot of requests for that, and but at the same time, we also know that there's some performance fabrics that are just indoors, but we are really, people are really sensitive now about having, you know, maintenance and having things keep that looking better as they keep living in it. So that is kind of the big, it's kind of a challenge because we have some of our favorite fabrics and we get some pushback because they want to have, you know, a maintenance-free fabric. So we're kind of finding ways to have both. So we're all excited about what we're doing on the interiors. But definitely people are using more of the, you know, those fabrics inside.
Okay, and then we will wrap it up with 2 final questions. One is, are there any particular things to keep in mind for a rooftop or terrace when you're designing it?
Well, the challenge in a rooftop or a terrace that's open, is that what you mean, an open air? It doesn't have a...
Yes.
They are really a challenge. And what we will do there is you have to really be 2 things. You have to make sure you have furniture that's weighted enough because it's on a terrace. You know, the weight is important. And we have to put, you know, you're really getting direct light all the time, even though we do suggest people take in their cushions. They don't always. So you kind of like keep the fabrics lighter. It is, and you kind of do a little more edited. You can't do all the accessories out there because of the weather. And so that's one of the things for a real outdoor terrace on an upper level.
Okay, and then we have one more. Do you have any sorts of rules of thumb for smaller outside spaces, for maybe what's a minimum number of seating that you should plan for?
Well, really, when you look at, for instance, the loggia that's at our house, it actually is a very tiny space, and we have 2 love seats, or I could put, and 2 chairs. It's amazing when you really look at an outdoor space. And I think it was interesting, one of the times after we first finished the house, we had a designer party, and we had so many people, but you can see this space is not really that large, but outdoor spaces feel bigger because there's open space around it. So you can kind of, we put furniture almost all the way to the edges of the loggia. It's different than an interior room where you're really walking through it and flowing. A lot of your flow is happening outside of that space. So you want it to be cozy, and people love to kind of gather around in spaces that are kind of a little bit more cozy, we've seen. So we will kind of fit in more furniture than sometimes it seems. And oftentimes we've noticed when we've ordered furniture for our outdoor spaces, we've had to bring extra or order extra pieces later. Somehow they kind of, the outdoor space kind of absorbs the volume, and you always can fit in a few more chairs.
Well, it's a good place to have a crowd.
Yes.
Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you, Julian Chichester, for helping put this together. And thank you, ADAC. Also, it's been great.
Yes, thank you for having me. I love being part of it. And it's funny that I have had this be my focus, because I love thinking about the landscape and the exterior spaces with the interior. So it's a perfect topic for me to be involved in. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I want to send you all sorts of personal questions, but I won't. But thank you all. And I hope that you are all on your way to a happy hour somewhere. And
yeah, I think that I'm going to be, yes.
Good. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off from here. And thanks everyone again for joining.
Bye. Bye, everybody.